All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market off and rolling here today, up a little bit this morning. In fact, if we pull up the chart here of S&P futures, it looks better than Netflix, but really just not going anywhere. Right, just chunk in here in a relatively small 6-point range since the open. This chart right here, right here is the open. This is the open of the market. We've seen that same range. Overnight we had a little bit more of a range, about an 8-point range, but still a relatively small one. If we back this out to about a 5-minute chart and look at the week, we can see the drop on the kind of, hey, a trade deal isn't going to happen this year news, right? And what's happened since? Right? What has happened since? The market has just been absolute nothing. Flat as can be. Yep. Few stocks here, few stocks there, mostly caused by analyst action, where we're seeing some of the uptick or some of the downtick, but for the most part, we're not really seeing the market decide to make anything substantial out of any of these moves here. So that's where the market sits this morning. No real metric change in the market. Here with it. But anyways, that brings us to the challenge. And we have two positions for the challenge. I updated them just before I got on the video, so the prices may have changed just a little bit. Netflix probably got a little bit better. Halliburton probably got a little bit worse. But, you can see challenge just down here around 3,400. Netflix getting hit here today. Halliburton, nothing really going on it here today so far, and no new signals on the board this morning. So I do want to talk a little bit about Netflix. And yesterday I did have the wrong auto exit dates in there. Did get those corrected. Did get the rest of the Delta, Vega, Theta filled out here with those yesterday as well. But I was asked yesterday why I would enter Netflix again without a fresh 3-7 crossover on the moving averages. And very valid question. And something where, yeah, you're right. I don't have a fresh 3-7 crossover like we had when I made the trade, right? And I'm not going to get one, right? I'm not going to get one, and I'm not expecting one. But yesterday's action, while it looks like, oh, I closed a trade and entered a new trade, it was a closing of a portion of a trade. Had I had 10 contracts, right? Had I had 10 contracts of Netflix, I probably would have just sold 4 and held 6, right? Really what happened yesterday was twofold. It was adjusting the exposure on the position, okay? And because we only had one contract, I had to do that by buying a different option, right? And so we went from almost 2,200 exposure down to about 1,400 exposure. So we took, just a little under 40% off of the position. Okay, so you have to kind of think of it as it is the same position, right? Just kind of rolling it into a different option there. And I know I didn't use the roll function, but essentially did the exact same thing here with it. So what happens? Well, my delta gets lowered, meaning the amount of change per dollar move will drop initially here on a move like that. And then it adjusts my exits, right? So we reset our auto exit dates, our red one or green one, and we also reset our profit level and our stock exit level. So we moved the stock exit level from 286.06 up to 303.21. Right? So 386 was down here, right? And now it's adjusted up here to 303. So we made a big adjustment there, to the stop element, right? Had we not done that and still just held it with the stop all the way down here, right, the risk factor is significantly greater. It's nothing different than what we did with Micron, up here, where we pulled we pulled a position that was 2,400 off, and it became a 1,600 position essentially. Now the stock did go down. It did hit our new adjusted profit or price stop, so did have to get out of that. But all in all, the Micron position is a green position. We took a gain on it, but this portion of it that was reduced, did end up there with a loss on that portion, right? So, you can think of it as a fresh new trade, but it's not based on a fresh new signal. It is just simply the proper adjustment to the original Netflix trade. And if you want more information on that and how that works, just come here to the front page of the spreadsheet. Down here below, there are the different tabs for it. But if you come to the front page of the spreadsheet, it says the ATR method, and there's a video discussion right here. You can click on that. I talk about the process, and basically all we did yesterday was go through this ATR process with the Netflix position as it hit our initial price target. So that's all. That's all we really did there with it. And, it would be sure nice to see Netflix moving on higher. It looks like it's moving on lower even more here this morning. We had some analyst downgrade action here on it, talking about, Disney Plus and how, 30% of Netflix subscribers want Disney Plus, and so that is being met with some bad news. And look, nothing too new this challenge. We have seen 6 out of 10 of our trades, basically get some sort of bad news within the first 24 hours of the trade. And so, here we make the Netflix adjustment and we get some, right away. Can it shake it off? It sure can. My apologies for the screen here. It sure could, shake it off there, but, we'll just be running it with the stops and profit levels and, the time stops here. So 303.21 is the mark here for it. It's, getting close. It may be something I have to pull off before the close here today if it does continue to sell. But it's, not too great seeing it break yesterday's low. I don't like seeing that. But we'll kind of see how that plays out here over the course of the rest of the day. Would be nice to see it rally up about $3-4 into the close, end down $2 or $3, and then push on higher again here Monday. All right, so that's Netflix there with it, and then Halliburton, nothing to adjust or change here with that position. Okay. All right. Now, we had some economic data here overnight, and we saw the PMI composite number out of China, out of Japan. And this is one of the first glimpses of the economic data around the world for November, right? You kind of think of the economic landscape out there, this idea of green shoots, and is the global economy going to go into a strong recession because of the trade war? Do we start to see a little bit of improvement in the economic data? Because the economic data around the world has been falling off, right? It has been falling off. But over the last month, we've been seeing a few signs of life. And so can those be continued here into November? Well, if we take a look at Japan, the composite level's 49.9. 50 is break even. 50 is, no growth, no contraction. So it's still contracting, but at a slower rate than last month. But this is Japan. It's Japan, and the economic data for Japan is never really expected to do much. Japan is basically a country with no growth and has been for a very long time, and, there's no real expectation of growth. So, no real big reaction on that. But then we have the Eurozone number, and this came out at about 2 o'clock my time, a.m., and you can see the composite level came in at 50.3, which was 0.1 better than last month, a little bit lower than expected. but still showing expansion. The manufacturing number improved from last month, though it's still showing contraction. And the manufacturing number beat the consensus, but the services number missed consensus, but it's growing. Right, so a mixed bag here when it comes to the Eurozone PMI, but still growth. Overall growth happening. And so we didn't see big reactions to any of those. And then we had the U.S. number. And the U.S. number here this morning was better than expected on all phases, right? If we look at the composite number, right, 51.2 was last month. It was expected to come in at 51.2, and it came in at 51.9. So expansion and faster expansion. The manufacturing number was 51.5. So it, last time was expected to be 51.6, and then here's the new part. 52.2 to see manufacturing leading the way, right? When we have seen this number improve over time, we have seen services lead the way. But here it's manufacturing leading the way. And yes, services was a little bit better than expected as well. But we saw a bump up in services, manufacturing, which obviously bumps up the composite number, and was one of the better. In fact, new orders for the manufacturing side of things were the best since April. And so that's a very positive element here. So is it enough for the market to say, well, I forget it, we can have a trade war and we're just fine? No, it's not. But is it, a continuation of some of these green shoots or some of this green shoot idea out there? It most certainly is. It most certainly is. And, this data, goes much more into the bullish camp than into the bearish camp, at least right now. Okay, alrighty. So that's the economic data. Again, it's not creating any, massive waves in the market. Here we are seeing, more sell action kind of come in here with it as, we are dealing with a Friday and, some worries going into the weekend about trade war talk. And we saw, the global leaders of China and the U.S. both have some, semi-positive commentary, but, not exactly being reacted to in a major way. The crossover list. Here's the downside crossovers. We have Gold, Intel, Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, Visa, and Walmart, all on the downside list. None of these are triggers here as they sit, but Pepsi could trigger here later today, so we'll see what that looks like this afternoon. And then on the bullish crossover list, we have a few 3-7 upside crossovers: Bank of America, Chevron, Vale, U.S. Steel. Vale, really nice upgrade, helping to push the sector higher. Chevron, which is kind of following some of the other things we saw in the oil sector. So we had the crossover on Halliburton yesterday, Chevron getting its today. And then Bank of America, which had a crossover, yesterday afternoon, but wasn't a signal, sold off into the close, is pushing up here this morning. And yesterday, the consolidation risk was very high. It still is. It's kind of a very interesting chart on today's move, but that consolidation factor is still just a little too high there for it. Okay. All right, so that's where things are. Continuing to hold on to Halliburton and NFLX. No new signals on the board, and we'll see what this afternoon brings. I won't be on video this afternoon unless a trade has to happen. So unless we get a new signal or I have to back out of Netflix or Halliburton, I'm not going to jump on video. If they do, I will jump on video for that. But I will share some of my thoughts going into the weekend here on the message feed, so you can check those out there. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.